religion, spirituality, afterlife, leave that on one side for now, right?
Yeah.
These are matter of discussion, but not concerned at this very minute. We need to have the common ground, which is reality exists for both of us.
Yeah, that's why I
we
like
exist.
science.
We exist for both of us,
Yeah.
and we can talk about this from a scientific perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we were to talk about this from a scientific perspective, what do you think your relationship with this universe, with this cosmos? Are you just a particle of dust within this existence, or there's more?
Well, definitely we are. Like, from the scientific part, we know that we are nature, and we live in a natural process, and our nature part works as any other natural being.
I'll explain to you.
We're born, we live, we die. That's for sure. The other part, which we don't know, we can imagine it, we can discuss about it, but always from a non-scientific perspective. And so I think it's all about faith, whether you feel it or not. Right now I'm kind of struggling with that faith, so you can tell me about what you think that there's afterlife. I can tell you what I think
Talk about
that
the
there is, but
afterlife later. Let's talk about this
okay.
life first. This life.
So what do you
This
want me to
life.
talk about?
This life, this reality that we can observe and we can experience,
Yeah.
has it always been there? Or did it have an existence, beginning?
It had to have a beginning.
Okay. So this universe has always been there in existence. So you go in line with the current thinking in most of the scientific models. This universe had a beginning a few billion years ago, 30.7 or whatever billion years ago, right?
Yeah.
It started with a big explosion into the Big Bang, prior to which there was nothing. Okay? So people, the minds who study astrophysics, study cosmology, we're talking about scholarship in this area, they have different opinions whether there has been a singularity always, from which, and one form that they rise from the singularity, which is our universe. Or there was nothing, but this nothing again wasn't nothing, it was something, like we're talking about the model Professor Lawrence Krauss describes. Is nothing is not really nothing, is nothing is something. Some kind of thing which...
Professor Lawrence from the Reason of Faith, maybe? Or maybe I'm mixing
He's
two
a well-renowned
different
scientist.
Yeah, okay.
He's published a book which is quite great for most of the people as a... When the universe from nothing. There's a book. He's given lots of lectures on this as well.
Yeah.
So others describe that there are other universes. So we call them multiverses. There are multiple multiverse.
Yeah.
Ours is just one of those, many of these bubbles. Okay, various theories. Okay, so some are of the opinion that there was always something. Others, no, there was nothing, but again, they're confused, I would say in my words, what this nothing is, because they're differentiating between the philosophical nothing, when we say nothing is nothing, and yet they're actually putting some characteristics and making it something, like there's some fluctuations going on and vertical particles coming out from it. That's not nothing, that's something. So, what is your understanding? Because if there was absolutely nothing, then do you think there will be something? If there was nothing to begin with?
That's a really difficult question, but everything has to come from something else. So at the real beginning, I don't know what was that fire that began it all, but I can only talk about nature. So I cannot go like trillions of years ago and what the Earth or the universe or the multiverse or whatever you said was. But I think the only way to study that is science. But I understand the question where, like, from what everything begins. Like, okay, let's say everything began with a with the God that created, where does this God come from?
You can ask the same question. Wherever that God came from, something, if it is something,
Yeah.
what that something came from. So you can carry on asking questions, right? So we are now facing something called like an infinite regress. Okay, this is a term, you can look this up.
Yeah.
So let me give you some examples how we can solve this problem, okay, by understanding the examples. If something has happened already, like an action has taken place, like this universe has come into existence, is it possible there were causes prior for this universe, causes for this universe coming into existence?
Yeah.
There were infinite number of them in the past, because the question that I'm answering, what caused that creator? Right? When you say, okay, well, let's say a creator, a God created this universe, then one can say, what created this God or creator? And why stop there? What created that God which created this God which created the universe? And you can carry on like this, okay? Yeah. So if you have this universe, and you have one God there who was created by another God, created by another God, and another God, and you go on ad infinitum, right? And so that. This is one way of looking at these things. But how rational is this? Because we have to be rational in our thinking.
I think from the God perspective and the spiritual perspective, since we're talking about another dimension, time is not as we, like, there's no time. So I think we're discussing about something that it just doesn't exist in the perspective of...
We're talking about cause.
Huh?
The universe
Yes.
came into existence, as you said.
Yes.
With a cause which you describe, let's say it's called God. Okay? So God was the cause of this universe. The universe didn't come into existence by itself while it was nothing. Because if it was nothing, let's understand this a little bit more slowly. If there was nothing to begin with, nothing means there was no energy,
okay,
no something, no matter, no fluctuations, no quanta, no gravity, no quarks, right? There is nothing. So from this nothing, you cannot get something, because something, to get something, you need energy. This something is energy, right?
Yeah.
Matter and energy, they're interconvertible. So if you have nothing to begin with, there will always will be nothing. So the idea, some people say, oh, nothing can give rise to something, it's not really a rational way of thinking. Because if you have nothing, you end up with nothing. There's always going to be nothing, because if it was absolute nothingness. If you do have something, then the question is, what is this cause? And when we go and asking what is the cause of that cause, if we want to continue questioning this.
Yeah.
So, whether there is infinite causes for our universe, or the causes end somewhere. If it ends somewhere, we will say this is the first cause.
Yeah.
So these are the two options. We want to know which one is most rational.
Yes.
Okay. Let's take the one which is infinite number of causes. Okay. If it was infinite number of causes, then I would say this universe will never come to existence. Never. It will not come to a point where it will exist. Do you know why? Let me give you a scenario to understand this. Let's say you are the librarian.
Okay.
And I want to borrow a book from you.
Sure.
Okay? Me and you. There are infinite number of people in front of me.
Okay.
So the action of book borrowing needs to take place, that is, from your hand to my hand. I need to get this book. That's the action to take place. Now, before that happens, there's someone else, and someone else, and someone else. Infinite number of people.
Yeah.
Never ending. So I am on a chain of this borrowing queue. Would I ever borrow the book from you?
No.
Never. Because there's always going to be someone in front of me. It will never take place. I will never get the book in my hand. The reason being there are infinite number of the causes. So that demonstrates if there were infinite causes for our universe would not come into existence. Because there will be, these causes will be causing by something else, will be caused by some other causes. And the universe, the end universe will never come into existence. Just like the book borrowing will never come to existence. So how do we know that this is not how it happened, or it's not the most rational way of thinking and coming to the conclusion? It's because the universe exists. The action has taken place. the action of universe coming into existence has taken place just like the book has been borrowed. If I get the book on my own hands from you, then you know for sure there weren't infinite number of people because I have got the book.
Yeah.
If the universe has come into existence, we know there cannot be infinite number of causes. There cannot be. That means the causes of this universe end somewhere. And that end is the first cause. The philosophers have described this quite, aptly and with, intelligently thousands of years ago, if not, from the very beginning of people's thinking when they came up with this. Just talking about the universe. The Greeks, for example, and others, they talked about this. Aristotle, I think, called it the prime mobile, the first cause, okay, if I'm not mistaken. So, when we are using our scientific perspective in understanding the world, we do know if our world has come into existence, the causes of our world at the end is a finite cause. Something, not finite cause, finite chain of causes, somewhere it ends, and that is the first cause. So the question now would be, this first cause, obviously, prior to it cannot be another cause, because otherwise we'll go into the same problem. What caused the cause? So we are now coming to a point where we're saying there is a cause, prior to that there is no cause. So we call this cause the independent cause. The one, or the thing that is independent, not dependent on something else, absolute. It's an absolute cause, absolute and independent, from which the universe came to be. Whether there were millions and zillions of gods or creators in middle or not, what's important is that there is a cause which is the very first. Of course, as Muslims, we don't believe there are millions of gods and demigods and other creators.
Yeah, of course.
God is the only one.
Yeah.
Okay? Who is the first cause of everything? Who is the originator? It's called Badi'us Samawati wal Ard. The Quran describes the originator of the heavens and the earth. Do you follow?
I follow, but I think I don't share it.
Why not? Share with us why don't you follow?
Okay, for example, you're talking about that you're here between you and me being the library guy. There might be infinitive causes. For example, like your perspective is that we are here because of a cause, that someone or something had to want us to be here. And from the scientific perspective, I don't share that things just happen because of a cause, but not because of someone wants that to happen. It is just nature.
That's another thing to talk about. Why we are here from that cause. But do you agree or appreciate at least that there cannot be infinite number of causes for our universe's existence? Because if there were infinite, the universe would not come to an existence. Just like the book borrowing. If there were infinite number of people, I would never take the book from you.
I don't know. It's a difficult question, but I think we are getting to the same point. What you're saying is that how everything began in from your perspective, something or someone who want everything to begin.
Now, in terms of wants and will and intention, this is secondary to the question of whether our universe had finite or infinite causes. The cause, whatever it is that brought us into existence, obviously must have certain characteristics, properties or attributes. Whether this cause has intention, will, is what you're now discussing.
Yeah.
But I am simply saying, do you at least appreciate that this cause wasn't infinite, but there was a first cause? Because if there was a first cause, the universe would not be here. That is my point now. So I'm not going to I'm not going to now try to say, okay, agree with me, but I'm just saying, as long as you appreciate it, it's fine. You can give thinking.
I appreciate it because
think about it later on.
Okay.
But as you can see from a rational perspective, it doesn't make sense. There were infinite number of creators or causes. What does make sense
because
and
there
what's
has
rational?
to be a first one.
First one.
I
So the next
that.
question is, if we have a first cause which brought us into existence, what are the attributes, properties of this cause? The cause cannot be, by definition, limited and finite and dependent, because it means it requires some other cause. So it is independent, it is absolute, as we alluded to earlier. This is one of the characteristics the Quran gives about the Creator, that He is as-Samad. Everything depends on this Creator, and this Creator is not dependent on anything or anyone. Okay? Independent, absolute.
Okay.
Someone who is self-sufficient.
Okay. I'm gonna agree with you in this point. So let's say yes, there's like a creator who want everything to start, because if not, from the from the scientific perspective, if there's like infinite causes, there has to be a first one who's independent. So, okay, there's a supernatural being who want everything to begin. So, like, let's call it God. Do you think God, everything that happened in the world is the will of God, for example?
Let's take this one step further then. If the Creator, God, brought us into existence, as you've already explained to me, there has to be an intention behind this Creator. The Creator willed it.
Yeah.
So there is a will of the Creator for us to exist. Now, whatever happens, either we have our own independent will, or we follow as much as will that's been allowed for us. Okay? We clearly know that we do not have absolute will. Can you fly? Flap your wings. You don't have wings, right?
But that's not my will.
Yeah, but even if you will to. Like if I want to fly now, I want to jump up to this space, I can't. I have a will, but I cannot do that because I am not capable of doing this because of restrictions. So my will, even though I have a will, like I want to be the richest man, I don't want to be, but if somebody says I want to be the richest man in this earth, people will so many things, right? But it doesn't materialize. So our will doesn't materialize, even though we have the will to will it, okay, but it doesn't really necessarily happen. So the question is, how much of the will is it under our control?
Yeah,
and how much?
I'm talking about the will in terms of our decisions. Like, for example, I cannot fly, but I can try to, So, like, what I'm doing is my decision. So, and whatever happens, it was cause of the decision that I took, of my will. So what I'm asking is, you think that we have the will to take our own decisions, or that everything happens because of God's will?
It's a very interesting question. There are some early Muslim scholars, they differed on this and they became two extremes on this very question.
Yeah.
Okay. The position that we are offering in our discussion is the middle position. Okay. Islam is the middle nation. So we don't go into extreme of Qadariyah and the other extreme of Jabariyah, which is you have absolute control of your will and everything, or you don't.
Or not.
Okay? No.
Okay.
Middle will. So what we understand from the teaching of this Creator through the prophets and messengers, through the last prophet, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we have a limited amount of free will. Okay? Limited amount of free will, which we can exercise and make decisions ourselves on this. Because if we weren't, then we are not responsible for anything. Like we are like robots. Someone's controlling us.
There's
no
point on
string. What they call puppets. Yeah. We don't believe we're like that.
If you agree with that, like there's no point on like judging someone if he doesn't have a will.
Exactly.
So if there's heaven and hell, people have to have a will. Like so, from that point of view, of course, like. Not everything that happens in the world is the will of God. It's just the will of man.
So now to talk about, to bring the will of God in perspective from the Islamic understanding, is this: nothing happens except the will of God. Now, why do I say that? Because this is what the Quran says. Nothing, you cannot will unless God wills. So what happens is this: God allows you to will. Okay. For example, say there's a bad person. He wants to kill someone. Now, God could stop that person from doing it, but God allows that person to have that will and be responsible for that action, even though God doesn't intend or wish that people should murder each other, innocent people and so on.
Yeah.
Okay? But that will is there, so God allows it to happen, but the responsibility or the consequences is on that person, because the person wanted it to happen. Okay?
Yeah.
And God just, materialized that will to manifest. If I say, I will meet you tomorrow, 10 o'clock, Marble Arch,
Yeah.
okay, and I die 10 minutes later, I was not in control of my will, okay? So there are things we know for sure that ultimate will is the will of God, because it was His will that I die.
Yeah.
It was my will that I meet you, okay? So ultimate will always takes precedence. But He might will, in accordance with what I want, sometimes He might interfere, right? Okay, these are the times God interferes in His wisdom, okay? He might stop from, imagine someone wants to, hit you or something, and that person just, before they came, it just stopped, they couldn't do it, they just fell down. He just became totally incapable of doing that. We have an example from the biography of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before he was born, one army general called Abraha came to destroy the Kaaba.
Yeah.
With the army of elephants. He had this intention to destroy, but the elephants would not just move towards the Kaaba. Okay? Because the ultimate will of God was nothing should happen to the house of God, where people should worship God. So there are many examples we can give you about the ultimate will of God, but it's easy to understand that if we had no will whatsoever, we're like robots. Then no one can be judged or blamed for anything.
Yeah.
We have absolute will for everything, then we should be able to do everything. But we can't do everything, we can't wish anything, everything.
I don't agree with that point.
So, do you agree at least then? There is a middle point where
Yeah.
there's a limited amount of free will.
Well, no, actually not. Like, I think we have unlimited free will, but as I explained before, like, we have free will to take whatever decision we want, but we are limited by nature. I can, like, my will maybe fly. I have the will to, like, take the decision of trying to fly, and nature is limiting me from flying.
From that point, this will that you think you have, yes, this is the will that God allows us to bring it into our thoughts.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. So Islam doesn't say, but whether it materializes is a different thing, which you agree with, because manifesting the will is a different thing from willing it. Yeah? So I might have thoughts, and these thoughts don't materialize. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a will for our existence from the Creator. The question is, why are we here then? Why did this Creator create us? That's the next step. That's the next question we should ask. Are we here for no reason, no purpose at all? Or is there a purpose of our existence?
That's a question I cannot ask.
Yeah. That's the question that
I cannot answer. So
we can think about it, but our thinking will be speculation. And at best it will be speculative. I think we are here to be good. I think it's here to be nice. I think it's here to be generous. People can bring up lots of reasons. But the real purpose, the real reason, can be only known from the Creator Himself. Creator itself. The Creator tells you, this is the reason I created you. Do you agree? Because we can speculate about so many things.
From the spiritual perspective, of course, I agree
from
with
any,
you. Yeah.
From any, if you think about this, people have difference of understanding in terms of why they're here. Yeah? Whether they're humanists, atheists, secularists, agnostics, religious people, you can see that people have a lot of difference of opinion, exactly what is the purpose of their life. Okay? So, because of these differences, obviously you can't pinpoint to them, okay, that's the real answer, can you? Because who's right? So when you have questions like this, the best solution or the answer to this question is the one who created you will tell you. So if I've made something, if I made an object like this, you can say, oh, you know what, this is for to putting the nail on the ground.
Yeah.
You can use that like a piece of metal. But obviously it might have another purpose, like it's a phone, right, to speak and do other things. So the one who makes it will tell you the purpose, why it's made. So it is reasonable to understand that the Creator which created us tells us what the reason is. And this is what we say, that all prophets and messengers, they came, who were the agents of God on this world, as someone who would guiding us to these questions. Clearly told us the purpose of our existence is to acknowledge God, to love God, to worship God. Okay, to worship, total submission and surrender to our will, to the will of God. Okay? And that then signifies that the gratitude to this Creator, because the essence of worship is gratitude. We are actually being grateful for everything. We're showing our gratitude, and this is why every Muslim, every day when they pray, there are 5 times of prayer. They pray 5 times regularly. Within those 5 times of prayer, there are at least 17 times they say like Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen minimum, which means all praise and all gratitude belongs to God, Lord of all the worlds. Okay, so we are constantly, bringing us back to this reality of submission and surrender to this Creator who created us for this purpose. Now, this is mentioned in the Quran. This is taught by the last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the message God gave, but there was a series of messengers from the day that God created human beings. Everyone came. When I say everyone, all the guides who were prophets and messengers raised to guide the people, they said the same thing about the purpose of life. Because we're not here to live forever. And history is an evidence that people have died, and people will die, and we will die. We will not going to live forever. Even though you might have some feelings of immortality that you want to live forever, this is something that God may have created you with this, feeling. You want to live forever. But in fact, in reality, you will be at some point, not now. In this life, there will be a death, which will be a gateway. Because between this life and our death, we have to fulfill the purpose that we are created for. And after that, there will be this eternal life that we so aspire. But this life will be made by what we make of this life.
Okay, well, of course, from the spiritual perspective, I agree with you, because as I told you, I'm struggling with my faith, but so I've been raised in a spiritual perspective and a Christian religion. So in my religious perspective or theory, I totally agree with you. But the thing is, talking about this gate to the other dimension and the other life, right there we are going beyond the nature laws that we know and that we can study and that we can see here in life. So my question is, have you ever seen here in life the laws of nature being broken? Because I've never, and I understand the spiritual perspective, but the thing that makes for me hard to believe right now, to have faith, is that I've never seen the laws of nature being broken, and that I have no evidence at all, scientific evidence, in that there may be a second life, which doesn't mean that there won't, but for me it makes it hard to believe it, because I have no evidence at all.
In the times past, the laws of nature which we understand were broken. Even though those things that happened, also within the bigger aspects of laws of God. Okay? But from our natural perspective,
they are being broken, but you always keep it in the natural or scientific perspective. Science is evolving. That's why I say not everything that we know is science, but because science 200 years ago would tell us, would describe a different world than the world that we know today from science. So based on that, I can say that science doesn't explain everything, because within 200 years, science is going to tell us things that today we don't know. But the thing is, it is difficult to me, as could be difficult to a person 500 years ago, to think that the world was was a circle. For me today, it's difficult to think and to believe that there's something else beyond nature. And
You know the aura in the body?
yeah,
The aura. Have you ever heard of the
Yeah,
aura around
yeah.
Did you know it's absent from a dead body?
it's absent.
It's absent.
But can
So
you
once a
can you
person has
middle
passed-
can you middle the aura scientifically?
Yeah.
In a person?
Yeah, this is what they're studying. The
Yeah.
aura about our bodies, and they can judge between somebody who's happy and somebody who's sad. The aura changes.
Yeah.
But this aura is absent from a dead body. So somebody who's passed.
Okay,
away-
so what I think was the aura, I guess it's something else. Like I think the aura like in a dialectical concept, but I didn't know that you can actually like study that
Yeah, they are
scientifically.
studying it. They don't fully understand it yet, but
Yeah.
they're still trying to understand it. Oh, sorry, I just wanted to.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate the intervention.
One example I can give you is from a living evidence, material evidence,
Yeah.
which has broken the laws of nature.
Yes. Which one?
This is the Quran.
The Quran.
The Quran is a living miracle according to the Muslim scholarship and the layman. This is consensus. It's a living miracle. Miracle by definition
Yeah.
is something
you
goes
cannot
against
explain.
natural laws that we understand.
Yeah.
So how is the Quran a miracle? The Quran makes people totally incapacitated to imitate it. If it's a piece of literature, you can imitate the literature, right? If it's poem, for example, prose or poetry, you can imitate its style. People have imitated Shakespeare, people have imitated Beethoven, or people can imitate, yeah? People can imitate your voice and my voice, sure, right? When it comes to the Quran, you cannot imitate the style of the Quran. It may be difficult for someone who's not qualified in the Arabic language, for example, you
Yes.
learn Arabic language to appreciate this. But there are ways of thinking about this because you can objectively assess the Quran's structure. It came in a language, even though it was Arabic, but the forms, the stylistics were totally unique and different. Okay? So objectively you can measure this. Objectively. And studies have been done already to objectively show how the Quran came to the Arab population, Arabic speaking people,
Yeah.
in their own language and brought in a form, in a genre, this Quran, not being poetry, not being prose, not being the saying of the soothsayers, but in an eloquent speech which they're unable to imitate its stylistics.
Yeah.
Unable to. Why? Because it came and to totally overturn their convention of the language. So if you speak if I were to speak to you now in English
Yes.
and totally changed the grammar, the syntax, then you won't understand what I'm talking about because
Yeah.
it will be like gibberish to you. It will not probably make sense to you because you understand English with the words and the vocabulary and the placement within a sentence, the linguistic elements that's joined together, these words, the grammar that makes a cohesive unit of a sentence that I'm trying to convey to you the meaning of.
Yeah.
But if I totally did something totally different, you would not understand it. The Quran came, it uses the same Arabic letters, alphabets.
Yeah.
It used most of their vocabulary.
I don't think
Yeah.
I'm gonna get your point because like
No,
from
I'm-
my vocabulary, like there's no book or no text that you cannot copy exactly the same.
That's the general principle, but you should be able to imitate everything.
Yeah.
So what was the Quran that prevented from people imitating it? That is the thing that we need to really discuss. That is the thing really we need to appreciate. Okay,
Yeah.
so if you are not an Arab yourself, Arabic speaking, not Arab,
Yeah.
it's not Arab,
Yeah.
Arabic speaking,
Which of course,
then we need to go to the people who have learned Arabic, professional Arabic speakers, who doesn't have to be Muslim. I mean, non-Muslims are fine. What have they seen? So, as I said, objective studies, using academic standards of objectivity, demonstrated how the Quran came. For example, you have a particular chapter in the Quran. If a chapter in the Quran is, say, 15 words, the number of new linguistic features, innovative features, going beyond the convention will be more than the number of words. In fact, I'll show you some examples without going into any detail, just to show you, by the principles. This is an objective study, volume 2. First volume is the method.
Okay.
Second volume is the application, about the linguistic miracle of the Quran. Yeah. So, if I were to give you an example of a chapter, very small chapter, you can see very clearly. 1, 2, 3, 4 ayah, 4 sentences. Yeah. How many words? You can count them. 15 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. The number of this newness or linguistic innovation, linguistic novelty, which defied the convention, is 22. Every single surah that you study, this is another surah. Okay? 23 words. At least 31 linguistic innovations. Innovations were going against the convention, and yet eloquent. In fact, most eloquent speech. This is one surah. I'm not just going to give you an example. Every surah, like this is, look, a shorter surah again. How many?
From my opinion, it doesn't matter how eloquent that may be.
No, what I'm saying is, it's not about eloquence. I'm saying, even though it went against the convention of the Arabic tongue at that time, it went against the convention of their poetry and their prose. This came with an eloquent speech defying the convention. In a way, they were incapable of imitating something like that. Let me give you something that
we can now imitate.
The question is, you can't. It hasn't been, and it cannot be. It cannot be. So this is an objective assessment of this linguistic miracle.
I think from our linguistic differences, I'm not gonna get to
I'm not gonna give you any details. Let me give you, these buildings, right?
Yeah.
They're made of bricks. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Suppose now I bring a building, and I say, you cannot imitate the building that I'm going to bring. So I bring a building made of bricks, but every brick is totally detached from another brick. So you can act detached. So the bricks are there placed, one over the other, but there is not touching each other. You can actually see it, like go through your hands through it, and the whole structure is like this. Total building, but each brick is totally disconnected from another brick with anything, like floating in space. Would you be able to imitate this building with your current technology?
Hardly.
You cannot. So even though the Quran is made up of Arabic letters and words, it came up with this structure, like this building, that it cannot be imitated. So at least if you can understand the building structure, this is what the Quran comes. So we have objective studies done to demonstrate. So this defies what we call the natural principle of our world, the natural laws. We should be able to imitate it because it's a piece of literature. We have language with its own grammar.
For example, a miracle, you couldn't copy that miracle. You couldn't. I'm assuming from your perspective. Okay, that building I could copy. I could get the manual that you based to build that building. I could do